Hello, friends. I'm DJ Lance Rock, and I have to say, Rock and Roll Grad School is awesome!
This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling. First-time callers, long-time listeners.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a real good time together. We are talking with the Downtown Mystic, Robert Allen, who has a lovely new record. I want to say pop rock, and that always, to me, sounds like an insult, and I mean it in the best possible way.
It's not an insult.
It's not. And I feel like the two of us, it's a genre we love very, very dearly.
A lot.
As our Matthew Sweet, our Red Krauss, our
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Love will detail. But Robert, the Downtown Mystic, record is a lot of fun. And it's also just a good straight ahead rock album as well.
Correct.
And he has some amazing people playing on it. One of the drummers for Wings, you might have heard of them before.
Indeed.
And the bassist who played with, I believe it was Elton John, amongst others. I mean, he's played with everyone. So
Right.
very, very good pedigree on this record. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun conversation because we get into really some nerdy stuff when we get into
Well, yeah.
eras and models of guitars. And yeah, exactly. But speaking of eras and models, we need to talk about the Outlaw Country Festival.
Yeah, but don't spoil it. Well, I guess every show's going to be different. And my
Every show will
very
be different
from yours.
And most of my notes come from the Robert Plant, Alison Krauss leg of the show, which
Oh,
unfortunately
yes.
they will not be in attendance at.
But I already saw them and you have not seen them. So
brag. Okay. So
well,
I
now
think
you have, but
I
you
have,
haven't.
yes, now. Yes.
Yes.
I texted you. Well, let's start with the folks who are on both legs of the bill that you will be seeing in September.
Yes.
I highly recommend you look at Dylan's set list, if it doesn't change between now and then, and just give those songs a couple listens.
Okay.
Because you will not recognize them when he plays them. And I mean that in the best possible way.
Yes.
I had a blast. It was lovely. You could see Jim Keltner hanging on by a thread, trying to watch and follow what was going on.
Which is fantastic.
The rest of the band, the two guitarists and not really the bassist, because he's played with Bob for 30 years, but you could see them just standing there playing and staring at his hands on the keyboard to be like, where is he going next? Are we going up or down here? It was lovely.
Fantastic.
An amazing version of Shooting Star,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of my favorites.
It's a good one.
And then he does a cover of Stella Blue, the Grateful Dead song, that is amazing. And then there was a duet that I'm not going to say more about. If they keep it up all summer, it will be a highlight of the show.
But if they don't?
I'll play you the tape from the one I saw, and you can be jealous that I saw it there.
I know.
So Willie Nelson, for this show last Sunday in Jersey, by the way, the PNC Hamdel Bank Arts Center, that is a schlep to get there. Once you're in, lovely.
Like it.
There are shuttle buses if you don't want to pay for the VIP parking. And on principle, I felt like I can't pay more for parking than I paid for my ticket.
Okay.
And you walk up to the venue and it is literally grass and dirt. I'm like, they could have paved this? This is right next to the John Bon Jovi rest stop. We need to put some respect on the name.
That's kind of awesome, though.
Once you get in, it's lovely. It's hell on earth outside of it. But anyway, Willie Nelson could not make it to the venue per doctor's orders. So his son Lucas from Promise of the Real played.
Okay.
I feel like when he came out, you lost a few people. And throughout the set, folks kind of were like, all right, I got my fill of Willie Nelson songs. And they
Yeah.
did, I'm assuming, exactly what they would play if he was there. But it was great. It was a very laid back, and maybe it's because he wasn't there, it just felt so much more loose and like
Yeah.
I can get up and leave. I can, um, and then they ended, Edie Brickell came out
Nice.
to kind of fill some of the void left by Willie's absence. And they did I'll Fly Away and Will the Circle Be Unbroken. And then
Okay.
everyone left, and Lucas Nelson just solo ended with Angel Flying Too Close to the Ground. And it was lovely.
That's nice.
But let's go with Robert Plant and Alison Krauss for a moment.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yes.
Lovely. The
Yes.
band is great.
Phenomenal.
And watching Robert Plant is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The way that he clearly has had a lifetime of standing on a stage, and how much stuff he just like literally with a fingertip to indicate, okay, this side of the crowd do this thing, like
Yep.
so minimal, but you've like the energy contained therein is amazing.
And the two of them together is
Mm-hmm.
like the duo that I truly believe the world never knew they needed, and they are just phenomenal together.
The way the voices combine and
Unreal. And obviously they've been doing it together for several years now, but
right.
they are just phenomenal together.
And I feel like she very much gets the short shrift in that.
Yeah, she does, but
My God.
she's so stellar.
I believe she has more Grammys for bluegrass than anyone else. Like she
Yeah.
is no slouch in her
Oh
own.
God, no, she is unreal. I mean,
And-
and he gives her proper, I mean, he
he
tips
introduced
his,
her to the crowd on Sunday as the woman who changed my life.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
And I think, I mean, that feels like all you need.
yeah, I mean, the look on her face when he said it, she like literally was like, oh, okay, like thank you. But the way they both walked in from opposite sides of the stage and kind of the little bow to each other, and opened with it's the first song on Rising Sand. She Got the Money and I Got the Honey, that one.
Yeah.
Like that very, I mean, the whole set was very swampy and
Yeah.
and it was great. As soon as they walked out, these skies opened up and just poured. And by the time they reached the Battle of Evermore towards the end, sun,
Good.
it was amazing.
Of course. Of course.
So it was lovely.
That's awesome. Was Billy Strings on your?
No,
Okay.
there was a opening act, Charisse, I think is how Celise.
Okay.
She was great. Very bluesy, felt like kind of a Brittany Howard thing,
Okay.
which hopefully she won't get lumped in with that, but very bluesy.
Yeah.
Three just guitar, bass, or bass drums and her, and ended with a cover of Use Me by Bill Withers. And
Nice.
walked out through the venue soloing and came back onto the stage.
That's awesome.
And you could tell people around were like, oh, okay, she's got it. Like she's got the
That's
chops, she can
awesome.
do it. So
Very cool.
if it is coming to your neck of the woods, go. And maybe next time you'll see the Downtown Mystic.
I know, right?
Is it great to just get these out there? And I feel like some of these songs have, well, I was reading your notes on production, and you said 3 or 4 takes are maximum, and then move on to the next thing. How long have you been working on this record?
Oh, this record, just a couple months. Well, yeah, I would say generally it's in a 3-month to 4-month between recording, overdubbing, mixing, and mastering.
Did you do all the production yourself?
Yes. Well, this was some of these things were with recorded with Ben Elliott, who has since passed away. So yeah, we were together, and then I took the rest on myself.
So keeping to the 3 or 4 takes. I know from a lot of people we've talked to, some people are like, we're keeping to that. I mean, it's hard to keep to that for a lot of people too.
Yeah, but you have to remember when I get together with Steve Holly, Paul Page, we're running the song down for probably over an hour.
Sure.
Where we're like, okay, we got it, let's go for a take. So when we start doing takes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
3 to 4 takes max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
I'm
because
notorious. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I'm
I'm
just saying we've already played it for like an hour or so, and it's like you don't want to do it much more than that.
true. I'm notorious for doing like rehearsal for anything I do. And then the second you go to the take, it all falls apart. And I'm like, wait, I want the one before the take. Can we
That's
get
what
the
you got to
one
do. The
right
Clint
before?
Eastwood,
Right.
where he records the
Exactly.
rehearsal.
Yes, that would be, but that's me.
That's yes,
Well,
true.
yeah,
That's
generally they like Joe DeMeo, who I work with now, he's always got the thing going. He's always got record on. So yeah.
Yes.
So
And,
you go,
fail safe.
yeah.
yeah.
And
You took
given
that?
your
Yeah. Okay.
and given your proclivity for kind of doing it the old way, do you record on tape or do you do it digitally?
This project was done primarily on tape. I'm trying to think. There might be a couple songs. There might be one song that wasn't, but everything was done on tape, and then transferred to an external hard drive to be mixed. To go through Pro Tools. Pro Tools is pretty kind of the whole mixing process and all everything is going through, even though we go through the board to go and then go into Pro Tools. It's Pro Tools has kind of, made certain things obsolete, particularly tape.
Would you say necessary evil?
Yeah, for instance, it's Brian Wilson's 82nd birthday today, right? And I
That's right,
maintain
yes.
that he would not have been able to complete. He didn't. He wasn't. What does he do? He puts out. They finally finished Smile. What in 2000 or 19, whatever it was.
Mhm.
How many, like 20, 30 years after the fact? And quite frankly, I don't think that album would have been possible without digital editing, because I think using a razor blade and I just think, yeah, I think, yeah, digital was what made that album possible.
Yeah, especially Surf's Up. That instrumental or the a cappella part is the
Yeah.
part that's always the heartbreaking. And I'm just like, how do you, yeah, you hear that. Well, and given your t-shirt, we should note, clearly, I think we can guess where some of your influence and your affection for music comes from. Do you kind of does the going electronic or digital, does that give you too many options? Do you like the idea of like 4 tracks? We'll bounce it if we need to, but we got to just let's get it down.
No, I mean, there's something to be said about knowing your limitations, and I kind of know my limitations. So no, I think that it's actually so much better now in the sense that, I mean, for me, yeah, I probably wouldn't take everything that gets recorded, but like the engineer is like, yeah, we got that. Nah, we could do that again. Nah, don't worry. I'll just put it on another track. So you end up with like 10 vocals or whatever, instead of before you had to do, if you're going to double track, you had 2 in harmony. So maybe you saved 3 or 4 tracks. Now it's unlimited, which is, it's good.
And given the folks you worked with on this record, you mentioned Steve Hawley and Paul Page. Do you get starstruck around them?
No, because I've it's kind of like after the fact when I'm talking, like
Mhm.
now when I start talking about it and I can tell stories, and it's like, then it kind of hits you like, oh my God. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, Steve, plus it's like them. They are so down to earth.
Mhm.
It's like us talking right now. It's like, yeah, Steve Holly flew to Japan the day before they were supposed to all get together, and that morning he got woken up by a frantic Linda Eastman McCartney saying Paul's in jail, and that whole thing is, when you just imagine that, you're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But you'd never know it because he's so down to earth. And I mean, the list of people that he's played with, and there's when he was with Wings, McCartney did this thing, Rockestra, which
Mhm.
was and they did a documentary. It was for a benefit concert, and they show you the behind the scenes how he's got all these amazing people playing on this thing, and there's Steve Holly playing drums, and next to him playing drums that he's duplicating is John Bonham.
Mhm.
And when you see that, you go like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? This is the guy I'm playing with." So yeah, at that time, it's in these moments that I get so struck.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
and go
good.
ahead. Sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, does that add another level of pressure for the songwriting? Or is it
No,
just
no, and actually, because when I started with them, and they like getting, I like to do things where let's just go for it in the studio, and they're like, no, send us a demo. They have to write out their all the times, all the everything is down. They know exactly when to start, when to stop. They don't like surprises. So having done it with them, I'll send them demos, and Steve will come in with his ideas, and I have ideas that I have it a certain way in my head, but no, it doesn't put any pressure. And actually, on the one before this, Amerikarma, which came out last year, which was kind of like a career defining album for me. It was on the demos for that suddenly there was a difference. Steve calls me up and he's like, "Robert, I'm blown away. These songs are amazing." And it was at that point, it was when I got off the phone, it was like, holy shit. I never got Steve Holly, the guy who's played with Paul McCartney, Elton John, is telling me how great these songs are.
Yeah.
Then it's like I've arrived. That was kind of a moment like that where it was like, whoa, something just changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good moment.
That is a good
Oh,
moment.
We should all be
believe
so
me.
lucky.
Oh yeah, it's like yeah, because songs before that, it was just like, okay, cool, we get there and we play and that's it. But to have that response before we got to the studio, um, that just doesn't happen every day. So yeah, that was major moment for me.
Did you know in your gut before you heard it that it was
No,
different?
no, no. As a matter of fact, there were songs on there that I didn't think anything about. And it was only after they told me how good the song was that I started to kind of go back, and as I'm recording and starting to mix, it's like, oh yeah, now I get it. It's like I didn't get my
Mhm.
own song.
Well, it's hard because you're so close to it, right? You're
It
just
is,
kind of
it's
like you're
true.
going to work, right? You're doing the
Yeah,
job.
because it was, particularly this one song. So the first single off of Americana was Fly. And that was a song that was actually written as comic relief to me, because the two songs before that I had been working on were Live and Shadow Walk, which are very heavy kind of songs. And so it was like, oh, Fly, yeah, it's just playing around. I just want to fly in the sky. You know what? Yeah, let's break it up. Let's kind of have some comic relief. and and then I did a Buddy Holly mix, because the way the demo was, I was turning it around on the da 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 da, and it reminded me of Peggy Sue. And so I got this idea. I said, you know what? I want to try a Buddy Holly version of Fly. And Steve was like, no, 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 no. Because if we do that, I know you're going to put that out first, and you're going to forget this song. This is a great song. No. And then it was that made me kind of stop and go, whoa, I don't think it was that great a song, but let me check it out. And then it was only until I did the vocals and started to mix it that I got the vibe of it, and it totally changed. And I had a nephew who said, you know, when I heard that song, it reminded me like of a prayer. And I was like, really? Because again, my attitude towards the song was it was comic relief. I was just but then I realized that all these songs were from the COVID era, and that there was something historical about that whole thing that we've all gone through, and that nobody seems to want to actually mention anymore. But a generation, anybody who's been alive in 2020 that went through COVID and the lockdowns, nothing has been the same since. Everything changed. And that was and on Americana, that's what I wanted to kind of take stock of, that experience. And so Fly became a whole other thing, because it's like, it starts off the record, I just want to fly. I want to get out of here. I don't care where it is, just let me get out of here. I'm tired of looking at four walls. So it totally took on a totally different message for me.
Do you feel, or do you look at your records as sort of a scrapbook of a time and a place? Or are you just constantly writing and bringing stuff in and seeing how it fits together?
Yeah, some of them are. Like this next record is going to be like that. Because I always look for a theme. I always try to do my playlisting in a thematic kind of way. So yeah, they definitely mark a time period that I can, like, oh yeah, that's what was going on then.
So you're writing kind of in groups, or is it just one and then you're picking them out of the book when you look back on it?
It's changed, because my whole goal of doing this was to stop and try and get into the studio, not only write a great song, but make a great record. And it's very difficult to tell people the difference between making a record and just recording a song. But for people who do it, they understand what making a record means. It's a different kind of thing than just, oh, put a microphone in front of me and I'm going to sing, and look, I just recorded something.
Do you like that?
So getting back to your, let me just get back to your question. There
Please.
I've changed. Yes, I used to just take up guitar, screw around, and suddenly like, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me put that on tape. Oh, that's neat. And now it's more like I'm hearing the production, and it's almost like if I don't hear the production, it's like, that idea is not that great. Forget it. So it's changed. I'm almost writing from a production point of view now.
Well, and I noticed I think it's an EP. There's another record of acoustic mixes of these songs.
Yes.
Is that part of the process? Do you enjoy doing that, or is that just sort of like we have to do this because maybe we'll get plays someplace that
No, it was I don't know if you know Mike Gowan from Milestone Publicity. We were doing I came to them after a month after I had put out Rock and Roll for the Soul. And so they're doing a couple months trying to, catch up with publicity to get people interested in something that's a month old, and which is very difficult. So he just kind of threw out like, you know what, do you have any like acoustic songs, songs that didn't make the record that did? And I said, no, I don't have anything like that. And then it was like a day, I started thinking about it. And I'm like, you know what? That's not a bad idea, because I have songs from the record that have acoustic on them. And if I strip them down, I mean, I do, I'm always doing different kind of mixes for sync licensing. So
Right.
yeah, I will take all the electric guitars out and just have it an acoustic track. And I never thought about releasing that kind of stuff though. And suddenly it was like, oh yeah, I could have a little project that hooks on to the main project, and that was the idea, the impetus to try and kind of reboot Rock and Roll for the Soul by doing this acoustic version.
And it's certainly, I feel like everyone we talk to always says like, well, if you can't strip a song down to vocal and guitar or vocal and keyboard, it's not a song. And it sort of really highlights the strengths and the structures of what you're doing.
Right.
I'm going to assume you agree with that, but
Yes, I do.
do you enjoy that process, or is it pulling teeth? Because like you said, you hear sort of the production of this thing, and then someone comes in and is like, well, no, let's try this.
Well, oddly enough, I really like the instrumental, because most of the sync licensing stuff is the instrumental versions.
Right.
So I get to hear, like you just said, I get to hear the whole structure of my production without the vocal, and because sometimes the vocal hides certain parts.
Mhm.
All sense. Yeah.
And so all of a
Yeah.
sudden you get a different, sometimes, it'll, the snare drum will not be as loud because of the vocal, and suddenly the vocal comes off and the snare drum goes up. You're like, oh, I don't have to bring that up. So I get a different perspective, and I like it a lot more sometimes, because it's like I don't have to, the vocal can be distracting from the point of view. It's like, if you don't like the guy's voice, if you don't like my voice, you're probably not listening to the song. Whereas, just the track, you got no choice. What can you say? You either
Right.
like it or you don't.
All vocalists think that they can dominate the song.
Well, yeah, but at the end of it, because I was a manager, and I understand the point of view of a record is not going to get accepted at radio if they don't buy the vocal, because
Of
that's what you
course.
hear first.
Absolutely.
If you don't like something about the vocal you don't like, or the person's voice, it sours you to the whole song.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you-
So yeah, it's very important.
Even though it seems like, or doesn't just seem like it, it's sort of become an afterthought or not as important. Do you still mix the records for radio? I know Brian Wilson always used to take tapes and go into his car to listen to them to make sure it sounded good
Yeah.
coming out of a car stereo.
I have a 2012 Civic that I will not sell, because it's one of the last, they're not making sticks anymore, which is a stick. Plus, it's one of the last that has a CD player in it. And I judge all my final mixes on what it sounds like on that CD player in my car.
Oh,
Are you driving around?
That's
Do you have
amazing.
like
Oh
a
yeah,
overlook
like
you
I
go
drive
to?
around, or I drive somewhere about 5 minutes from my house. And I just park the car, nothing but trees around, and I just sit in it and I listen.
That's awesome.
Well,
That
Yeah,
makes me so happy. Because that means you can still dig out a mixed CD, which is different than a playlist.
yeah, well, part of the problem is you can't really trust what you're listening on anymore. I mean,
No,
we all listen on a computer. People are walking
It's
around
not
with their
the-
phones,
the
so
same.
what are they listening to? And you know, and yeah, I have a CD player, but you know what? It no longer has treble and bass on it. It's pop, rock,
Right.
it's a
It's
preset.
not the same.
Mhm.
So there's certain things I judge on that mix for, like, but overall, for like a very clear, if it doesn't sound good in the car, I'm going back into the studio to remix.
And I mean, I've got my, I've got my stereo with my record player and I love my vinyl, but when I'm really, you just have to flip your records over a lot. And
Right.
and it sounds amazing, but you just got to turn them a lot. And I spend a lot of time in my car and I really miss my CD player. And I really, I wish I had done something like you and just held on to that because I have a lot of really great mixed CDs that I want to just put in there and rock out and just drive or sit under a tree and just listen to. The speakers
Yeah.
don't even have to be that great. I just want it to be, I want that experience.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of sad
Right.
that that the way everything's like kind of going the way of the dodo. So that's progress, I guess.
I guess.
But
I
that's
really-
the business that the business of music. If you're in the studio, everything is, and particularly what I do, it's all like classic, vintage. I play vintage guitars. The studio has vintage microphones and
Mm.
vintage outboard equipment and vintage amplifiers. I mean, if you find something from the '90s, it's new.
Right.
Right.
Do you
But
feel like you're kicking against sort of the evolution of stuff, or is it just that at some point the music industry as a whole will see the error of its ways and go back to we need a tube amp, we need this
well,
thing?
yeah, well, let's put it this way. I think for me, in particular, the reason why you're talking to me and even talking about my music is the fact that I think I don't sound like anybody else.
Mhm.
And the reason why I don't sound like anybody else has a lot to do with the electronics.
Mhm.
There's just no way Snoop Dogg is going to get the same kind of sound that I do.
Right.
Right.
And not that he wants my sound, but I don't want a very slick kind of plug in, everything is software, as opposed to actually plugging in the guitar to an amplifier and turning it on and turning the power up and feeling, not only if you feel the volume besides hearing it.
I feel like that's got to be part of the reason that you've been able to assemble such a crack team of musicians around you. When you have Gary Talent and these type of folks show up and play with you, like they must inherently know it or feel it when they listen to the songs of like this guy is of this mindset and writes and produces records that hit me where I like music to hit me.
Yeah, exactly. And I need musicians that know how to play rock and roll,
Mhm.
that understand it. And I make a distinction between rock and roll and rock. Tom Petty, when he was getting the Music Cares award in 2017, made this speech in where he says it's rock and roll, and he specifically says, and there's a roll, which means it swings. It's not just rock. There's a roll in there, and roll means it swings. So, and that's when you talk about drummers, it's like, does he swing? And they're talking about how he plays a groove and the feel of the song. There's a lot of kind of innate things that you can't really express except to actually do it.
Mhm. And I know from that article about production, you have an enviable assortment of guitars. When you're writing
Um,
stuff,
Uh-huh.
oh, come on.
It's like, I got a couple.
Yeah, a
yeah, I mean,
1956 Strat. I mean,
no. I have a
oh no, you have the
1964.
64. Oh,
I have a
sorry.
64
My
Strat
bad. Yeah.
and the funny thing about that was, in writing that article for Music Connection, I didn't realize that the Strat didn't come out till 1957. Because when I first met Gary, he lived in Seabright and we were going to Red Bank. This was just when the vintage guitar, just before it took off.
Mhm.
And a friend of mine went down, he buys a $2,000 1952 Broadcaster, which is what Leo Fender named the guitar before he had to call it a Telecaster because of patent problems or whatever. And it wasn't until 5 years later that the Stratocaster came out. So I bought this, I needed a guitar, and my roommate in college was like 70, 71. He said, I know somebody that has a Strat he's looking to sell. And he was going to sell it for 125 until I wanted to buy it, and then he sold it for 150. And I always thought the guitar was a pre-CBS, which is like they sold out in October of 65. So I always hoping like, yeah, it's a pre-CBS 65. And then it was only like about I mean, probably about 10 years now that I decided to get it painted because it had been totally sanded, and it was sanded down to its natural finish, and not even a shellac over it, just what he had done. And I got so superstitious about it that I refused to do anything to
Makes sense.
change.
Yeah.
And then I decided to get it painted. And when they took the neck off, at the bottom of the neck, it said August 1964.
Wow,
Wow.
And then it was like, oh wow, this is even cooler than I
that's
thought.
amazing.
What
Yeah.
color did you go with?
If you look at the Americana,
Oh, the photo.
yeah, the photo, it's like almost like it's kind of like a turquoise. What they did is they started GM, the old like a 1957 Mercury.
Mhm.
They had these classic car colors, and they started painting. You could go onto GM, pick I think it's a 57 Merc. It might be a 58 Chevy or something like that. But you could go to these classic colors, and the artist that was going to do the painting would get the paint from that. You could get that exact year, the exact color of that paint, and then they paint it. So I went with something like, 57 Merc or something, had these turquoise Fender, because Fender, like you see Lennon and Harrison got these, it's called atomic blue. It's a very light, almost powder blue from like 62. They got these guitars, or 63. And this is a little darker than that.
But it's a thing of beauty. And I cannot imagine, like, I guess I can't imagine how it sounds. I'm assuming it's all over the record.
Yeah, and it's like, you just plug it in and it's like nothing else sounds like that.
That's awesome.
And I did a lot of writing on a 19, I think it's a 65, it could be 66, Gretsch Tennessean, which is the guitar that you see George Harrison playing at Shea Stadium. It's the single cutaway. Looks exactly like that. And I always
Wow.
thought it was a what they call a hollow body because it had F holes. But then when you buy it and you look at it, it's like the F holes were actually painted on.
Really?
It's like a solid, they call it a solid hollow body.
Wow.
Because that's like kind of one of the rockabilly guitars, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So-
Chet Atkins. So they only made them till 1970. I think they went from like 62 to 71 or 72. So
And
if
so
you
much
got one,
rockabilly-
you know that it's
Yeah.
going to be vintage.
And I feel like rockabilly has to have that hollow body. But I guess not. I stand
Well,
corrected.
yeah, the Telecaster also is a very
That's true. Okay, you
it's
got me
between
there.
the two. But Gretsch was definitely in the rockabilly what's his face Eddie Cochran, but I think that might have been a guild that he played, but it looks like the 6120 Gretsch that everybody's played.
So as you're writing, do you know which guitar you're using?
No, I
That's
just
to mess around in the
it just
studio?
happens. Except for there was only if it's like I had bought this 12-string Rickenbacker and I realized I hadn't ever written a song on it, and I came up with this song called Better Day. It's specifically for a 12-string Rickenbacker.
How often do you sit around with that thing and just play that first chord of Hard Day's Night?
Never.
Really?
Yeah,
We
I
are
know.
different people, Robert. We are
Yeah,
very, very
I
different
know.
people.
Yes, you would think I have. Yeah, it's called the guitar room, and there's like a dozen guitars sitting out, and I basically just walk in and wave to them and walk out because today you can't if you're a professional musician in the business trying, releasing records and I run my own label and everything. So I don't have the time unless I'm specifically going into the studio and I'm going to actually make a couple hours a day to practice parts before I go into the studio. But otherwise, yeah, I don't play the guitar like I used to, which is
Well,
sad on my part.
Rock and Roll for Soul by Downtown Mystic is available right now wherever you get your music. For information, you can check out his website, downtownmystic.net, and you can follow them on Facebook, where they're at facebook.com/dtmystic.
You can check us out on all the various socials. Be sure to visit our website at rockandrollgradschool.com, and don't forget to leave us a review.
Today's show is produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thank you, good night, and may all your favorite bands stay together.
Now it's plain to see that it's up to